Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews video. Today we are having a look at the two new Age of Sigmar books that are up for pre-order today. Order Battletome Lumineth Realm-Lords that expands upon the units that were in last year's Battletome with a host of new Warscrolls and rules and abilities. And then Broken Realms Teclis that continues the story started in Morathi, telling the story of Teclis facing off against Nagash himself as we draw to the end of the Necroquake arc of the Age of Sigmar storyline. So one thing we need to point out first is that depending on whether or not you've got the previous Lumineth Realm-Lords book, that will determine which of these books that you need to get really if you play with the Lumineth Realm-Lords. So if you look at the Battletome first, this has got the exact same contents that was in the previous Lumineth Realm-Lords book. I've got the collector's edition here out of the launch box, and every single page of lore, every war scroll entry, all the abilities, traits, all that kind of stuff are duplicated in this book. So no war scrolls have been changed. As you can see, page for page, we've got exactly the same content that was in here. What Games Workshop have done is basically added a load of new war scrolls. We have got new abilities, spell laws, all that kind of stuff. Now the interesting thing about this book is that every single new page, be it lore, rules, war scrolls, all that kind of stuff, has been duplicated in this book. At the very end of Teclis, we have a section that basically collects together every single new page, including the lore. So yeah, really cool. Basically meaning that if you already have the old Lumineth Realm-Lords book, if you just buy Teclis, you are not missing any content. You have got every new page out of this book. Equally, if you're new to the game, getting this book will give you the complete Lumineth Realm-Lords Battetome. Now I do understand some people will probably want to have one book to carry around, and I do understand how frustrating it is that a book's come out less than a year after the previous one. However, I feel the fact that the rules are in Teclis is a nice compromise. You're getting all the content out of Teclis and you're getting all the new stuff as well. So due to that, what we're going to do is we're going to look through Teclis, because all the new Lumineth Realm-Lords content is in there. We can just go through that page by page. All the stuff out of the previous Battletome is exactly the same, even down to points and profiles and stuff, so you don't need to worry about any of that stuff changing because it hasn't. So going into Broken Realms Teclis, it is a fairly chunky book, mostly because, like I say, all of the new content out of the Lumineth Battletome is contained in this one, which is really cool. So let's have a look through and see what we get in here. Again, as with all recent Games Workshop publications, the book is absolutely gorgeous. This follows pretty much exactly the same format as the Morathi book, and tells the second part of the Broken Realms tale. Now I'm not going to go too much into spoilers in this one. Over on the website www.spruesandbrews.com, we have got a full kind of write-up of the story itself and the campaign and what happens. But essentially, Teclis does a strike on the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. Basically, Teclis is trying to finish Nagash, end the effects of the Necroquake, and bring some kind of order to the mortal realms. Nagash, as you would expect, isn't too happy about that and retaliates upon the Lumineth, seeking to end them as well. Really, really cool story. We see lots of cool stuff. The Mortarchs are involved, and there's some fairly massive things that happen to a couple of those in here. I really do feel that this story kind of sets up things ready for the next edition of the game, if that is what these books are leading towards. And yeah, the ending really did surprise me as well. Like I say, I don't really want to touch on any spoilers, because I feel this is one of those books that you need to read yourself. But yeah, they have done some great stuff with the lore in both these books. Morathi as well had a brilliant storyline, and yeah, this does not disappoint. There's some epic moments with Alariel fighting zombie dragons. We get a nice little kind of the story so far with some more gorgeous artwork as well. So yeah, these are yeah, quite nice books. I think they deserve to be in the collection of anyone who's maybe into the lore side of Age of Sigmar, or wants to learn a little bit about the lore and the story as it continues through this arc. And like I say, I feel this is probably going to be the foundation of maybe the future of the game and where the story goes next. I do feel that after the events of these books, we're going to see some fairly massive shifts in the factions and you know, how everything happens within the game. So yeah, you definitely want to read this for yourself, and I don't want to spoil it too much in here. But yeah, needless to say, just as good as Broken Realms Morathi. Equally some huge revelations in there. Really cool, and I enjoy being able to see that new lore element, something they've really built on since the second edition of the game dropped. So onto the rules. We get quite a lot of narrative content in here. Again, following a similar pattern to Broken Realms Morathi, we get to play through the entire chain of events that have happened in the story. So we've got 6 new battle plans, and essentially a linked campaign that lets you get benefits from winning one game as you go into the next one. There's quite a lot of forces involved. It does suggest that maybe if you don't have the forces that happened historically, maybe swap them out for other units that you've got. I am really keen to... We've got most of these forces between us, same as with the first book as well, Morathi. I'm really keen to play through the whole storyline across both the books, and you know, we know there's at least another 2 books coming after this one. I think that'd be really fun and a bit of a change of pace from standard kind of match play games, because you can have, I don't know, more of those epic showdowns and cinematic moments in these kind of games. You know, you don't have to worry about the games being balanced as such, you're just telling a story. So yeah, really like that side of things. So in order to support those new missions that we've got in the narrative storyline, we also get some new rules to flesh them out. First of all, it's only a page, but we get Streets of Death. This enables you to play games in the tight confines of a city or a settlement, for example, with rules for setting barricades, for people to throw bricks and stones off the floor, for you to actually hide your defenders within buildings, and even rules to represent how dangerous the narrow streets are, where monsters could potentially take damage as they're trying to squeeze through these little side streets. Again, it's only a page, so not massive detail, but again, a nice little bit of narrative flavour. And yeah, just thinking of a board with lots of kind of cramped buildings and stuff really wants me to kind of build like a Mordheim style board and do some close quarters games. I think that'd be quite fun for something a bit different to do. So yeah, I'd really like to see these expanded, and maybe, you know, if we did get some kind of skirmish Mordheim style game, maybe use this kind of stuff in there. So yeah, definitely exciting. We also get some new realms of battles to represent the various realms that we fight over during the campaign. So we've got Praetorius and Shaiish. Each of these has got all the abilities that you'd expect from a realm of battle. So the spell in this one is Drain Vitality. You pick a unit within 18 inches of the caster until your next hero phase. They reroll unmodified hit rolls of 6 for attacks and unmodified save rolls of 6 for attacks that target them. That's really scary. The Realmscape feature basically gives all terrain features arcane scenery, so magic's going to be quite effective here. The artifact is a sepulchral plate, basically gives you a 6+ wound shrug, and then finally the realm command. You pick a friendly unit within 12 inches of a hero. That unit can run and still charge later, so they're really nice. One thing to point out with these realm of battles, it does recommend that these are for more narrative games. They're not really designed for match play, so you may find that you know, some of them are quite powerful, so they're not really suited to it. This one, for example, as we'll see in a little bit. So Invidia in Gairan, we've got Cloying Quagmire. It's got a range of 14 and a casting value of 5. You roll the dice, and if the roll is equal or greater than their save characteristic, they suffer d6 mortal wounds. Pretty cool. Especially for heavily armoured or high save units, that's quite nasty. The Realmscape feature, thumb-sized mosquitoes. At the start of the enemy movement phase, you can pick up to D3 enemy units. You roll the dice for each one. On a 4 to 5 they take a mortal wound, and on a 6 they take a mortal wound and cannot run. Quite fun. The command ability is Submerge. You pick a friendly unit within 12 inches. You apply cover modifier to save rolls for that unit until the end of the phase. And the realm artifact, the Fecund Flask. Once per battle at the start of the hero phase. On a 2+, all wounds allocated to the bearer are healed. On a 1, you are slain, but you are replaced with a Beast of Nurgle. So that's quite fun. I quite like that one. Again, not really suited to match play, but definitely fun for the kind of narrative events that happen in the story. We then get Emetrica in Heesh. The realm spell in this one allows you to pick 2 points on the battlefield within 12 inches of the caster and within 12 inches of each other. And basically until the next hero phase, friendly models are not visible to enemy models that cannot fly. Basically it creates a wall between those 2 points. So that's quite cool. The Realmscape feature, because we're in the mountains of Haish, basically we imagine that there's mountains on the long edges of the board, so reserve units can only come in from the side edges. And then to counter that, we've got the Realm Command Hidden Pathways, which basically allows you to ignore that rule. So if you want people to come in on the long edges, you're going to have to spend a command point. And then finally we've got the Realm Artifact. In your shooting phase, pick one enemy unit within 8 inches of the bearer. That is visible and roll 4 dice. For each 6 they suffer a mortal wound. So again, they're just a bit of fun and kind of designed for the narrative events in the storyline. So yeah, definitely going to try those out. So then we get onto the battle plans themselves, and as I said, we've got 6 of them, each with suggested armies. So for example, in this one, you've got the Settlers Gain army, which is one of the new cities that we'll see a little bit later on in the book. And their force has to have 9 Settlers Gain units and a Zintil War Magi, which is the new Warscroll battalion, while the Nighthaunt army has 16 Nighthaunt units. Now in order to, even though it's a narrative game, there is some kind of balancing element. Each of those units has to follow kind of certain rules. So a regular unit of up to 10 models with a wounds characteristic of 1, an elite unit of up to 5 models with a wounds characteristic of 2 or 3, a grand unit of up to 3 models with a wounds characteristic of 4 or 5, a line breaker unit, a unit with 1 model and a wounds characteristic of more than 5 that is not a hero or monster, and a champion, a hero with a wounds characteristic of 8 or less. So basically that kind of gives you some guidelines on the units that you can take and just mixes up a little bit. I quite like that. It gives a little bit of structure to the narrative battles, and something we've seen in Morathi as well. So yeah, we get 6 of these, again all with similar rulings as to how you pick your units, with bigger games being able to include kind of more legendary heroes. We do see quite a few named heroes involved in the battle as well. Again, just following the storyline that we've seen. So yeah, some really cool stuff. The big one is on the next page with Nagash and Teclis having their big showdown. Essentially they're battling in the centre while their forces are trying to support them. And basically, depending on what's happened during the turn, you roll off and then add a number of modifiers based on how you're doing that objective. Basically, you need to beat your opponent on that dice roll 2 turns on the go in order to determine who wins the fight between Teclis and Nagash. So yeah, really fun, and again, really cinematic one. As you're going through these as well, depending on which side wins, you get bonuses in the next game. So yeah, I really like that. It's something a bit of fun. So it's not just the Lumineth Realm-Lords that get some love in Broken Realms Teclis. We actually see some new Warscrolls for the Maggotkin of Nurgle, and all of these are really, really good. So at the Sloppity Bowpiper, he has had quite an improvement. So now when he uses his Jolly Gut Pipes, he can pick one of 3 abilities that will affect friendly units within 14 inches of the Sloppity Bowpiper. So a Stabbing We Will Go adds 1 to their attack characteristics and melee weapons. Early one evening, my Pustel was weeping. Yeah, that basically makes any hits of 6 to a mortal wound, in addition to any other damage. And then My Love is Like a Ripe, Ripe Fart. Basically stops any enemy units within 3 inches of Nurgle units from piling in towards them. So yeah, that's we've seen quite a few abilities in the last few books that stops piling in. So yeah, that seems to be quite a big change that we're seeing recently. So yeah, definitely powerful. being able to limit however many people are piling in towards you. He does see, in fact all these units see a points increase of approximately 50 points each. So they are more expensive, but arguably their abilities are a lot better. Moving over to the Spoilpox Scrivener, he again has a similar kind of ability, but it only affects, you pick a Plague Bearer unit, and they get one of 3 buffs. You can either add one to their attacks characteristic, you can improve their rend by 1, or you can add one to their save rolls. So yeah, so between the two of them, you can really get Poxwalkers looking pretty good. Extra attacks, extra rend, better saves. Yeah, I really like these guys. Sloppy Barpiper potentially a little bit better because he affects all friendly units within 14 inches. The Spoilpox obviously only affects 1 unit of Plague Bearers, but between the two of them you've got lots of buffs for your Nurgle armies, so yeah, really impressed with those guys. And then the Beast of Nurgle also gets a bit of an upgrade. His profile's changed quite a bit. He's got extra attacks now, he's got some rend and some more reliable damage on his main weapon. I think it was D3 previously, it's just a flat 2 damage now. He's tweaked a little bit, so Attention Seekers means he can run and retreat and still charge, and also when he does so, he can move over enemy units, he can fly, so he could retreat through the other side of an enemy unit, which is quite fun. Each Beast of Nurgle as well, on the charge, also does D3 mortal wounds on a 2+, so yeah, a unit of them charging into something could be quite nasty. Like with the other units though, I think he's gone up about 50 points, so yeah, it does cost a little bit more, but arguably his profile's better, and his abilities are pretty cool, so yeah, quite like the new Beast of Nurgle. As with Broken Realms Morathi, we also get Warscroll battalions representing the 4 boxers that they're bringing out alongside this, basically. And these, I guess they're a bit of narrative fun and let you take some forces from the storyline as your army. Now, this is pretty fun. When a unit of Poxwalkers is destroyed, you can place another unit of 10, and then he also increases bravery, in addition to the effect that he's already got on his war scroll. So, yeah, pretty good. The cities of Sigmar also get some love in this book, with a new city, Settlers Gain. So, I guess, I don't know if you're any Warcraft players out there, but this seems to be the Age of Sigmar equivalent of Dalaran. So, City of Mages and Learning. They get their cool little battalion, which basically makes the Luminarch more dangerous and improves the roll for the protection as well. So, really, really cool. They're pretty nice units in the Cities of Sigmar book. The actual city itself, again, a bit of a focus on mages and learning. You can have an extra hero with an artifact, and you also add one to casting rolls for Settlers Gain Arcane Wizards, which is pretty fun. To represent the fact that there's quite a big elven contingent in the city as well, 1 in 4 units can be Lumineth Realm-Lords, and that is in addition to 1 in 4 units being Stormcast Eternals. So you can have quite a varied force, which is really nice to see. Finally, the command ability kind of reflects the fact that they're kind of following the Lumineth. You pick a Lumineth hero from the army, and all Settlers Gain units wholly within 18 inches do not take battle shock. So yeah, pretty cool. As with the other cities of Sigmar, we also get some command traits, artifacts and spell laws. For the traits, the general can fly. You can get a command point on a 4+ at the start of the hero phase, or you add 1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons, but you subtract 1 from save rolls. For the artifacts, we get some fun stuff. So the Heartstone, before they're slain on a 4+, they basically, all of the damage gets negated and they just have 1 wound left. Pretty nice. Talisman, you don't have to reduce the number of spells a bearer can cast if you attempt to dispel an endless spell. That's, again, pretty cool, especially if you've got a low number of casts from a wizard. Silver-plated Wand, you can attempt to cast 1 extra spell in the hero phase. The Blade of Leaping Bronze adds 2 to your attacks characteristic of a weapon. Amulet of Hate lets you charge after running on a 2+. And the Stone Spirit Armour gives you a 6+ shrug against mortal wounds and lets you ignore the effects of spells and endless spells on a 5+. So yeah, that's pretty nice. They also get their own spell lore. So Drain Magic can make it harder for enemy wizards to cast, unbind and dispel. Shield of Light gives you a 6+ wound shrug. And finally, Illuminate, you pick an enemy unit and you add 1 to hit rolls when targeting them. Really good with all the range stuff that you can take in this army. We also get Warscroll battalions for the Flesh Eater Courts and the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. Nothing too amazing in there, but again lets you recreate those forces from the storyline, so quite fun. Also, the boxes that they brought out for these are pretty good as well, so yeah, nice to be able to use those as a Warscroll battalion. So now we come to the final part of the book, and like I said earlier, this is every single page that is in the new Lumineth Realm-Lords Battetome, basically reprinted in here. So if you already have the old book, you can just get this and not be missing any content at all from the new book. Really, really like that approach. I was quite concerned they were just going to maybe reprint the Warscrolls and some of the allegiance abilities and stuff, and maybe miss out some of the lore. But thankfully, every single new page of lore, all of the new artwork from the new book is recreated here as well. So I'm really, really impressed to see that. It is very much the full experience if you buy just this book. Yeah. Some really nice stuff in here as well. Some of the artwork's great. My particular favourite's this one with the Spirit of the Wind flying through the air, filling some Khornate guys with arrows. So yeah, really nice piece of art that. We also get the miniature showcase as well of all the new stuff, because again these pages were included in the main Battletome, so for completion they have also collected them here. So yeah, really nice touch. I suppose they didn't really need to replicate all this stuff, but I'm really glad that they did, because it means that you do have the complete experience here. They also reprint the whole kind of allegiance ability sections here, just again, so you've got every page that is new in the new book. So first of all, for the Venari, we see their command traits and artifacts of power expanded. In the original book they only had the trait, so it's cool to see all this kind of stuff. So the first command trait is Grand Strategist. If the general's on the battlefield at the start of the first battle round, they get an extra command point. Consummate Warrior, once per turn you can either re-roll one hit or one wound roll, or one save roll. And an Astute Commander, each time you spend a command point on a 6 you get it refunded. They also get some artefacts. So the Sayari Pommel, they start the battle with one extra Ether Quartz reserve. The Senlai Amulet, they can run and still charge in the same turn. And then the Sunstone, they can attempt to dispel an endless spell in the same manner as a wizard. If they're already a wizard, they add one to their dispel. So yeah, some pretty cool stuff with them. Likewise, the Saniri have also been expanded. They had some traits and artifacts, but we see a new rule put in here for Deep Thinkers. You can pick a Saniri wizard that instead of casting a spell can contemplate. On your next turn, you can then cast your first spell on a 9 without having to roll any dice. So that's pretty cool. Next, we see a 2-page spread with all this new stuff for the Hurricane. So this is the majority of the new units that have been added in this wave, come from this subfaction, and these are the guys that follow the wind in the same way as some of the other units from the first book followed the mountain. So Move Like the Wind is a really, really powerful ability. So when you make a pile-in, you do not have to move at least as close to the nearest enemy model. So that means that if you wanted to, you could pile out of combat, you could lap round a whole unit entirely. It gives you loads and loads of options, and I think there could be quite a few shenanigans here for getting units in better positions, of charging a unit and maybe using that to kind of move away from them, and making that even better, when you do charge in the same turn, you get the fly ability and you can move an extra 3 inches from piling in. So yeah, you could pile out of combat 6 inches over an enemy unit and yeah, into range of maybe, I don't know, a valuable squishy wizard that maybe that unit was screening. There's lots of potential for shenanigans with them, and I think that's going to be a really strong ability. They also get a trio of command abilities. So Grand Windrunner basically improves the Hurricane Wind Mage's Wind Leap ability. If a unit starts wholly within 24 inches of the general, it can move 16 inches and it can fly, again making those wind charges really, really good. Swift adds 3 to his move. Not the greatest, I'd probably go with the Grand Wind Rider myself. And then Lawmaster, basically he knows an additional spell, so pretty good. I think that's by far the best one though. They also get 3 artefacts. So the Wind Blast Fan's really fun. Once per battle, you pick a unit within 3 inches and they have to make a retreat move. So little get out of jail card maybe if your Wind Mage gets stuck in combat. The Wind Stone again is another once per battle ability. You pick an enemy unit within 18 inches, roll the dice. On a 2 to 4 they take 3 mortal wounds, on a 5+ they take d6 mortal wounds. And then finally, roll the dice each time you allocate a wound. On a 5+ it's ignored. Again, some nice stuff. I quite like the Wind Blast Fan. This gives them a bit of survivability though. The Wind Mages and Teclis also get their own new spell lore. So Freezing Squall has a casting value of 5. If successfully cast, you pick an enemy unit within 12 inches. That is visible. They cannot run until your next hero phase. Howling Gale goes off on a 7. You pick an enemy unit within 12 inches. The unit cannot use or benefit from command abilities. That is pretty strong. Guiding Flurries is a cool one. It goes off on a 7. You pick a unit within 12 inches and you can pick one of 2 abilities. Either add 6 inches to the range of weapons, or you can add +1 to hit for missile weapons. And we all know how good Lumineth shooting can be. It has been expanded with some cool units in here as well. That is pretty good. Calming Zephyr goes off on a 6. You pick a Lumineth Realm-Lords unit within 18 inches of the caster. You heal d3 wounds. In addition, they don't have to take battle shocks. This is a nice way of maybe getting some recovery on Teclis, who always was, potentially a little bit fragile in the past. I quite like this spell. Casting value of 6. Pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster and roll a number of dice equal to the models in the unit. Each 6 cause a mortal wound. If it goes off on a 10+, each 5 does a mortal wound. So this is very much your horde wiping unit. So again, pretty good that one. And finally, we've got Transporting Vortex. Goes off an 8. You can basically teleport a unit anywhere on the battlefield outside of 9 inches of enemy models. So yeah, really like that spell lore. I think there's some stuff in there that could be really useful. And I think we might see a mixture of some Wind Mages or Teclis in there to take advantage of these. So something new that's also been added for the Lumineth Realm-Lords is their own terrain piece, the Shrine Luminor. So it's similar to other army terrain pieces. You set it up in your territory outside of 6 inches of objectives, and yeah, it gives you some bonuses during the game. Basically it's got a passive one on all the time, so it's got a 12-inch bubble around it, where once per turn you can reroll 1 casting, dispelling or unbinding roll for friendly Lumineth heroes. You can choose to garrison a non-monster hero in the shrine itself. If you do, from the second battle round, the range of that ability increases to 24 inches. And while they're on there, you can use a command ability for free without spending a command point. So yeah, really cool. I like that, and the terrain piece is absolutely gorgeous as well. We also see 2 new great nations introduced. There's Alumnia, who are a city of kind of athletes and adventurers, and their abilities are all about them being kind of physically fit and quick. So after armies are set up, but before the first battle round begins, up to 3 units can make a normal move but cannot run. Their command trait allows you to pick an enemy unit within 3 inches on a 2+, cause them a mortal wound. Their command ability is pretty cool. It allows friendly Alumnia units to charge after running. And then finally, their artifact of power, the Waystone. Once per battle in your movement phase, instead of making a normal move, you can pick a point on the battlefield within 12 inches. If you do so, remove the bearer from the battlefield and set them up again within 1 inch of that point and 3 inches away from enemy units. So yeah, nice little jump that lets you get pretty close to the enemy if you want to. The other great nation that is added is Helon, and this is all about kind of archers and the wind, and these very much kind of favour the new wind-based units in the book. They've got some really cool abilities. So if you are within 3 inches of enemy unit, you add 1 to the attack's characteristic of missile weapons. Really, really cool, considering that, Lumineth have got some really good missile weapons. Sentinels, for example, in close range, you're going to have a ton of attacks. So yeah, really like that. Their command trait, once per battle they can re-roll 1 run, 1 charge and 1 casting roll. Their command ability is really cool. At the end of the combat phase, they can pick a unit that fought that phase that is within 12 inches, and they can make a normal move. Considering how quick some of these units are, that could easily get you onto an objective, potentially to try and steal a win. So yeah, really powerful command ability. And then finally, their artifact of power. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can pick an enemy unit within 3 inches. If you do so, subtract 1 from hit and wound rolls for attacks made by that unit until the end of the phase. So again, kind of mitigating your incoming damage by debuffing that unit. And when I say every page is duplicated from the new Battletome, I'm not kidding. We've even got the battle plans, we've got all the Path to Glory stuff. Again, page for page, lifted from the new book, so you really do get all of the additional content in here if you do get this one, which is really cool. We also get some new Warscrolls. So we get the big uber one that you're probably not going to be able to fit into an army. But we then get 3 based on the new unit. So the Hurricane Temple needs Severus or a standard Spirit of the Wind, a Hurricane Wind Mage, and 1 to 3 units of Wind Chargers. If they are within 12 inches of a hero at the start of the combat phase, they count as having made a charge. So that means that they can use that 6-inch pile-in to go whatever direction they want, even if they're not in combat. Really, really powerful. Again, considering how fast these units are, being able to move them another 6 inches is, yeah, really, really good. The Star Shard Battery is a Calagrave and 3 to 5 units of Star Shards. And basically this makes your Star Shard Ballistas even better. They get a 5+ wound shrug, which is really cool. And finally we have the Blade Lord Host. You get a Venari or Saniri hero, 2 to 3 units of Blade Lords, and if they charge they can reroll hits of 1. Not my favourite one, that one, but nice way if you want to have quite a Blade Lord heavy army. So now we come on to the new Warscrolls in the book, and yeah, we've got some interesting stuff. So we've got the Lord Regent and Lyriar are very similar. This is obviously a named version with a couple more abilities. So combat wise, he's really, really good. With Demon Bane being, it's only got a single attack, but 2+ to hit, 2+ to wound, -2 rend, D3 damage. That becomes 3 damage against demons. And again, he can use it in close combat as well. He's also got some pretty decent attacks with his Regent's Sword and Horns and Claws. He has got Purest Ether Quartz, so when you are targeting him, enemy units have to subtract 1 to hit, and he also adds 1 to the casting roll when he is casting his spell, Greater Power of Heish. In a nice twist, if the final piece of Ether Quartz is used by the army, he can no longer use that. As with a lot of the other Lumineth units, he has got Sun Metal weapons as well, so any 6 to hit does a mortal wound. As he is essentially Tyrion's emissary, as long as Teclis is not on the army, at the start of the hero phase on a 2+ he gets a command point. So that's pretty cool. He then also gets a unique power, Greater Power of Heish. This is similar to the power that the Lumineth units have in the other book, however it allows D3 units to activate Sun Metal and a 5+, so yeah, pretty nice. The Venari Lord Regent is pretty much exactly the same, but doesn't have Demon Blade or the Voice of Tyrion rule. So yeah, pretty good combat hero that I think the Lumineth have been crying out for. Then we have the Venari Banner Blade. He's pretty cool. He's got a banner that increases the bravery of any Lumineth Realm-Lords within 18 inches. If he is within 3 inches of an enemy unit, he actually increases their bravery by 3 as well, so strange one. If he's in danger, basically they become more brave, so yeah, pretty cool. The banner also has a pretty cool ability. Once per battle, you can choose to activate it. Every unit within 18 inches, you've got to try and roll equal or less to the number of the current battle round. If you do so, the unit suffers D3 mortal wound and -1 to hit for the rest of that phase. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool. If you save it till the end of the game, you maybe do splash damage across the whole army and limit their hitting, or maybe in an important turn activate it to just try and minimise enemy disruption. Yeah, I really like that guy, he's pretty cool. We then have the new bolt throwers, the Star Shard Ballistas. Again, pretty good shooting. 2 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, -2 rend and D3 damage. You can also choose to fire a special shot once per battle that subtracts 1 to hit for enemy units. So we've got quite a lot of -1 to hit things stacking through this army already. So yeah, that's going to be pretty powerful. If they're within 24 inches of a friendly Lumineth Realm-Lords hero, they can also add 1 to hit. So essentially these things can be shooting on 2s. Really, really scary. I really like them. They're going to be a pain to shift as well because they've got a 6+ wound shrug. If you take them in the Warscroll battalion that we saw earlier, they've got a 5+ wound shrug. If they stay still as well, they add 1 to their attacks characteristic. So potentially you've got 3 attacks hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, -2 rend and D3 damage. Yeah, I really like these. Off the top of my head, I think they're 100 points as well. So yeah, they're pretty tasty. The Venari Blade Lords are an interesting one. I really want to like them because the models are amazing, but I'm a little bit puzzled by them. Essentially, they've got 2 different types of attacks. They can either make a single attack that always hits, wounds on a 2+, is -2 rend, but it's only 1 damage. So in a unit of 5, yes, it's getting through the hit and it's doing really well on the wounding, but a maximum of 5 damage isn't an awful lot. I'm struggling to see when you'd really do that over just stab something with a unit of wardens who can do a load of mortal wounds anyway. Instead of making that single attack, they can make a flurry of blades. This is pretty cool. So each model has a number of attacks equal to the number of enemy models within 2 inches. So I think, I haven't kind of worked it out with actual units, but I think you could probably get 6 to 7 attacks per model if they're fighting 25mm bases, roughly. And in that way, yeah, they're getting quite a lot of attacks. The only downside is, even though they're called Sunmetal Great Blades, they don't actually have the Sunmetal rule. Now, I don't know if that's a mistake. It is the same both in that book and in the Battletome. I suppose I'd expect any mistakes to be duplicated because it's literally the same pages lifted from each book. If these guys did have the Sunmetal rule, I could see that flurry of blows being really good. Without it, I think damage-wise, just your standard Lumineth units can outperform them really. What makes them pretty good though, and in certain builds really, really good, is their defensive bodyguard abilities. So basically any friendly Saniri models, and there's quite a few of them, I think there's 3 different Saniri models now, they can take their wounds on a 2+, meaning that you can keep those heroes kicking for quite a bit longer. They also have a 4+ spell ignore, so they are hard to shift with magic. But yeah, I'm not sure about them. If the perfect strike did more damage, I think it'd be amazing. Just doing 1 damage, I think it's quite limited to what it can actually do compared to a load of mortal wounds through some metal. We've got the Saniri Calagrave. He's the new artist-looking guy, and again, he's a strange one as well. So he's got a once per battle ability. That is a bit of a gamble. You can only attempt it once. You roll the dice. You add the number of the current battle round. On a 5+, you can pick a point on the battleground, and then everything within 9 inches of that doesn't take battle shock, and they get +1 to casting, dispelling, and unbinding. So towards the late game, that is more reliable. You can try and gamble on it in the early game. That is quite a big area of the battlefield as well that you're not going to have to worry about battle shock. You can make your already very good casting even better. So that's pretty good. The thing that puzzles me on this guide is his unique spell, Erasure. I guess he's a fan of the band. He can either do D3 mortal wounds or mark a unit for Erasure. If he does so, the next time he casts the spell, it does D6 mortal wounds instead of D3. But what puzzles me here, that surely casting D3 damage twice over 2 turns can do between 2 and 6 damage rather than gambling for between 1 and 6 damage. The only kind of situation use I can think of off the top of my head is if there was maybe a unit you need to take, cause 6 wounds all in one go because they can heal between turns maybe. I just feel like maybe I'm missing something here. So if you do have any suggestions on why it'd be better to do the single D6 rather than 2 D3, let me know because, yeah, it did puzzle me, this one, looking through the book. Next we have the Saniri Lore Seeker, and I think this guy is going to be amazing from an objective point of view. So this guy's essentially looking for trinkets. If a enemy with an artifact dies within 3 inches of him, he gets a command point. That's pretty good. If he's by himself, you also add 1 to save rolls if there's no friendly models within 9 inches. But where he gets really, really good is his ability to set up. So instead of putting him on the battlefield as normal, you can choose to put him anywhere on the battlefield outside of 3 inches of enemy units at the start of the game. If he goes on an objective during this deployment, he controls that objective and keeps controlling the objective until he is not within 6 inches of it. So this means that if an enemy unit wants to take that objective, even if they've got more bodies on it, he has to die. So if you can be pretty sure you're going to get the first turn, get him on there, maybe back him up with some Blade Lords so they can take the wounds for him. It's going to be really hard to shift him off that objective, and in certain scenarios I think that could be really, really strong. You can't use that ability to put him in your own territory, so it is going to be in either enemy territory or in kind of no man's land. But yeah, there's certain scenarios where I think that could be very, very strong, and you could get an early lead on victory points just because it's going to be so hard to shift him off there if he has got some protection from the Blade Lord. So yeah, I really like this guy. We now come to Elania and Elethor, the twins. They are a pretty good combat profile and they're an interesting unit. They can be taken in any order force, which yeah, it's quite. I think it's similar to, I think Gotrek maybe has the same rule, but it's not a common rule at all. And yeah, if they're within 3 inches of your general at the start of the turn, on a 4+, you get an extra command point. However, they can never beat the general. They add 1 to casting, dispelling and binding, making them pretty good casters. Now Elethor has got a pretty cool sword. The damage characteristic equals the battle round number. So at the end of the game you've got what, 4 attacks there that could be doing 5 damage each in the final battle round. Really, really cool. Once per game you can also make like a shooting attack with it. You pick a point on the battlefield within 12 inches. You draw a line and each unit that it passes over on a 2+ takes number of mortal wounds equal to the current battle round. So again, it is only once per battle, so I'd probably shoot it off in the final turn of the game to do a load of damage to everything in its path. Really, really cool. They've also got another interesting rule. So after you fight in the combat phase, you roll the dice. If you roll under the current battle round number, or under the number of wounds they've suffered, they instantly heal D6, disappear and have to be redeployed anywhere on the battlefield more than 12 inches away from enemy models. If they can't do that, they are removed from the game, but they don't count as being slain. So yeah, really interesting one that. In practice, I don't know if that's going to be a disadvantage or not. I'll have to play some games with them, but yeah, they're definitely a pretty good unit, and there's a potential for some decent damage there. They also have a spell, which essentially gives them a 5+ wound shrug, again making them a little bit more resilient. They've got a 3+ save base off, so yeah, they're pretty good. We now come to the new Hurricane units. These are the ones that really appeal to me because I quite like the aesthetic that they've got. With the Hurricane Wind Mage, definitely with a kind of Monkey King vibe, riding his cloud. He's got the Fan of Redirection. You add 1 to save rolls to missile units that target the model. In addition, he can bounce them back on a 6. He's only got a 5+ save base, so it doesn't make a massive difference, but might be enough to keep him alive a little bit longer. Wind Leap's really cool. It's only got a 6-inch range, but any wind charge units that are within that range have a move characteristic of 16, up from the 14 they currently have, and can fly. So yeah, pretty good. If you take him as your general and take the command trait that we saw earlier, that gives it, I think it's a 24-inch range, making it a lot more reliable. But yeah, Hurricane Wind Charge has been able to hop over units is pretty tasty. And finally, he is a wizard, and with Wind Blast Vortex, basically on a 2+ you can do some D3 mortal wounds to a unit, so a little bit of splash damage there. We then have the Hurricane Wind Charges, and these guys are really cool as well. So a 14-inch move, they can move over terrain as if it's not there, and obviously if you've got the Wind Mage near them, they just fly, so they can move over units and stuff as well. They're pretty good. They've got a short range with the bow, but they don't really need to worry about it since they can move so quick. 2 shots hitting on 3s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend and 1 damage. They're also surprisingly good in combat as well. Minimal attacks, but -2 rend means that they're able to choose through some of those tougher units. I think where these guys are going to be really good though is being able to move 16 inches. You know, maybe even another 16 inches if you cast Speed of Haish on them, charge into something, and then use their ability to fall out of combat another 6 inches. I think these guys are going to be really good for shenanigans, basically, charging into units and then using them to leapfrog onto objectives. So I think if you're playing against them, you're going to have to be quite clever about where you place your units, because you may inadvertently give these guys an easy chance of grabbing an objective, especially in something like Knife to the Heart or something. I think you need to be quite worried about these. So now we've got Severus, the Lord of the Seventh Wind. I know the model's been a bit Marmite. I really like him with that kind of Japanese fox god kind of vibe he's got going on. Yeah, really good model. So 18-inch range, 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounded on 3s, -3 rend and D3 damage. Really good bow. With movement 24, he can get wherever he likes. Again, like I say, cast Speed of Haish on him. That's what, 48-inch movement. After he shoots, he can move an additional 12 inches. Again, this guy can go wherever he wants, so quick. He must be the fastest unit in the game. What makes him really good though is the fact that enemy units subtract 2 from their pile-in move. So if you can get him, say 3 inches away from an enemy unit, which is really good to do because he is a hurricane unit, so he can do that pile-in, pile out of combat if he needs to. If he's fighting a range 1 opponent and he can get at the edge of that 3-inch bubble, they cannot hit him. They can pile in an inch and they're out of range. So I think this guy's going to be quite frustrating to fight against, and a canny player is going to be able to do all sorts of cool stuff with him. So really like that. He's got a 5+ wound shrug. Each enemy unit that's within 3 inches of him, after he makes a charge on a 3+, they take a mortal wound and they're -1 to hit. So he can pretty much charge in. If it's a low range unit, he's pretty much immune to the damage, and he can debuff them with that -1 to hit. Really like this guy. He also has the ability to destroy terrain features on a 2+, basically rendering those faction terrain pieces useless. And as he passes over units, he can pick one. On a 3+, they take D3 mortal wounds. Really cool units. For I think it's about 50 points less, you can take a standard one. He doesn't have the terrain ability, and he doesn't have the kind of move over units and cause mortal wounds to them. He does have all the other abilities though, including the ability to move after shooting and the -2 pile-in. So yeah, both of them are really good. Bizarrely, I actually favour this one because you can give him that hell on keyword to give him an extra attack while he's within close range as well. So yeah, really like both those units. I think they're going to be pretty good. And then finally we get Mayari's Purifiers as from the Warhammer Underworld's Warband. So Mayari himself adds on to casting. He can basically make an enemy unit within 24 inches that isn't visible to him, which is pretty cool. He's also got a spell that subtracts 1 from hit rolls that target the caster and from friendly units within 6 inches. So yeah, pretty good. And then the Purifiers themselves are basically a combination of the different units that we've seen. So yeah, I quite like the Underworld Warband. They're not always the most competitive choice, but it's a nice excuse to be able to use that warband within the game. And yeah, that is all the new units in the book. So obviously in the back of the book we get the points values for all the new units that have been introduced in here, including the new points values for all the Nurgle stuff and the Warscroll battalions. I think some of the Warscrolls for the non-Lumineth stuff's a little bit on the pricey side. Yeah, the chargers, the wind chargers, 130 points, and the battle line in a Helen army. I think they're really cool. The Blade Lords for 120 points for 5. I still just feel that some of the other Lumineth core units are just better. You can take those as battle line, but you can only take 1 per Saniri hero in your force. So if you wanted to have a pure kind of Blade Lord army, you would have to take 3 Saniri heroes to unlock those as battle line. But yeah, really cool stuff. I mean, the Ballista at 100 points is a bargain. I think the Lord of the Wind's pretty good. Yeah, there's some really fun stuff there. So that is a quick look through the new units in Lumineth Realm-Lords Battetome and Broken Realms Teclis. So yeah, really interesting how they've done this, basically put in the new content from here straight in this book. I know a new book after 12 months, well less than 12 months, about 8 or 9 months, is going to frustrate some people, and personally I do hope that's not a sign of things to come. I would be a little bit disappointed if, say, the Soulblight Gravelords come out in a couple of months and then 6 months later there's another book that amends them again. Yeah, that would be a little bit frustrating. This, I feel, has been a little bit of a victim of COVID as well, just because it pushed back the release of the first Battletome, making, you know, a lot of people haven't even been able to play a game with that first Battletome, so I do understand some of the frustrations here. That said, the new stuff they've added in these books is really, really cool. I love the narrative of Broken Realms Teclis. Like I say, if you head over to the website, we've got a full analysis of all the units in these books, and we've also got a full meaty write-up of the events of the book as well. Just didn't want to go too much into spoilers on the video for those who maybe want to experience it for themselves. But yeah, if you do want the spoiler version, head over to the website and you can get all the details on there. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that quick look at the books, and we'll see you next time.